So a new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer dropped. Yeah, you heard that right. It is real. I am still reeling from that new trailer, to be completely honest with you. So many never-before-seen things were shown, including new characters, environments, summons, systems, and even a release date. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be releasing on the very special date of February 29th, 2024. With next year being a leap year, the game has a very memorable release date that's going to make it stand out in the minds of players. Also, as a side note, I find it pretty interesting how this game will be releasing 4 years after FF7 Remake, and leap years also only happen every 4 years, so that's kind of interesting. As is expected with big trailers like this, the press surrounding the game has been buzzing with articles. One source from PlayStation Blog has given us a plethora of new information. Gillen McAllister of Sony Interactive Entertainment sat down with key figures of Rebirth's development team. Those he interviewed were producer Yoshinori Kitase, creative director Tetsuya Nomura, director Naoki Hamaguchi, and music supervisor Keiji Kawamori. Before we go over this blog post, and believe me, there is a lot of information here, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and give the video a like if you like what I'm doing here. Without further ado, let's see what's new. Hamaguchi was asked about the combat system and if it remained untouched since Final Fantasy VII Remake. Hamaguchi wanted to highlight the new team attacks called Synergy Moves. These Synergy Moves can be initiated anytime by using a command system that functions in a similar way to Limit Breaks. As players use this system, Hamaguchi hopes they will feel the bond between the characters as they continue through this exciting journey. Synergy moves were shown off a lot in this new trailer, and the spectacle and flair of each one looks so exciting. It's gonna be really interesting seeing how each character plays off one another and how it'll change the nature of random encounters. It looks like the tick marks underneath the command menu gauge are what will let the player know when the team attacks are ready. Now, at first I thought that the tick marks indicated the number of synergy moves available, but considering how special these moves are, it's more than likely an indication of not only when the move is ready, but also how powerful said synergy move can be. Either that, or it's all just a way to count up toward a single one being available. Each character will also have a new skill tree system as a new element of character growth. This will tie into synergy moves, as some of these abilities can be unlocked through the skill tree. New materia with new abilities that weren't in the first game are going to be available too. With these elements available, players are going to have a lot of control over their character loadouts and builds. Whether or not the skill tree will replace the weapon upgrade system that was used in Remake isn't confirmed yet, but perhaps these systems will coexist. One thing that I personally loved about Remake's weapon system was that it allowed each weapon to serve utility, so hopefully this new system doesn't lead to any of the weapons losing that. This time around, Red 13 is now playable. The developers challenged themselves to create a new playstyle unique to Red 13 so that he stands out from the others. Alongside his ATB gauge, he also has what Hamaguchi calls the Revenge Gauge. The way it works is that the Revenge Gauge will charge when he's guarding against enemy attacks. Once it fills, he can spend it to use special abilities. By creating a system like this, Red 13 can have a seesaw effect with his utility, using the ATB gauge when attacking, and then spending the Revenge Gauge when being defensive. I personally believe that this is going to make him a very viable option when deciding on who to include in your party, since it seems that you can still only swap between 3 party members at any given time. Red 13 isn't the only new playable party member either, as we finally see Cait Sith. Or is it Ket Shi? Kate Shi? I don't really... Guys, how the fuck do you pronounce this cat's name? Anyway, Cait Sith has joined the party and his moveset diverts a little from his original appearance. You see, in the original game, Cait Sith was always seen riding his trusty Moogle. However, in Rebirth, Cait Sith can attack without his Moogle. That being said, we can see that despite his command gauge being completely full, he can't initiate the command Dodge and Dive. When he uses the command Let's Ride, not only does he summon his Moogle, but an icon displays next to his command gauge. It's likely that certain commands and even limit breaks won't be accessible unless he's riding his Moogle. I've got a feeling that the Moogle is only usable for a limited time once summoned, so Cait Sith will likely need to follow a certain rotation to maximize his effectiveness. Just as Red 13 was a guest character who couldn't be controlled in Remake, there will be other characters in Rebirth who will make an appearance but won't be official, fully playable party members. These will most certainly be Vincent and Cid. While I am a little disappointed that we won't be able to play as our favorite gunslinging vampire or engineering dragoon, they'll still be fighting alongside us in the game, and according to Nomura, will be fully playable in Part 3. New summons were shown off in all their glory, and Hamaguchi gave new insight into what we should expect. There will be a ton of new summons in addition to a few that will be carried over from Remake. These older summons will likely be Ifrit, Shiva, and possibly Bahamut. Some of the newer summons that were shown included Alexander and Odin. Alexander was actually seen in the VR room, so maybe we'll see our old friend Chadley again. Hamaguchi stated that the lineup of summons has actually been fleshed out over and above the previous game, with new extended side content based on a summon who did not feature at all in the original Final Fantasy VII. Who could this summon be? Currently, we can only speculate. Moving on to minigames, they will play a large part in Rebirth's side content, and even a part of the main scenario. The Junon Parade section will still be a fully playable minigame like in the original, but rather than forming in line with the Shinra unit, Cloud will be the one leading it. As he orders the composition of the unit, he will be graded on the unit's performance. If you look in the background, you can see a cutout of Rufus. These might just be set dressing or maybe something that Cloud can take out during his time in Junon. Also, if you zoom in on the kiosk, you can see the outline of a certain beagle. I'm sure it's nothing. One thing to note is that in the English reading of this article, Hamaguchi called the inauguration parade the climax of the first half of the original game, which of course had me scratching my head because I've never heard anyone say that about that section. However, Turquoise Hammer pointed out that the Japanese version implies that this section will actually be the climax of Rebirth's halfway point, which makes a lot more sense, and this was probably just some weird mistranslation. Many games have taken the stage with the new and improved Gold Saucer. All the original minigames that we know and love are still here, but there are also a massive amount of new minigames to choose from as well, not just in the Gold Saucer either, but also out in the wild as you explore the rest of the world. Hamaguchi joked that there might be players who get so caught up in having fun with the minigames that they'll forget to progress the main scenario. He's talking about me. The Gold Saucer will appear around the middle point of Rebirth, and players will be free to come back to it anytime they'd like. To incentivize revisits, the developers have created a system that will update the Gold Saucer as the story progresses. New challenges, harder difficulties, and new minigames will be unlocked. On top of this, the dates seen on the Ferris wheel will also be included. How they'll go about selecting who Cloud will take has yet to be revealed. The side content doesn't stop there either, as the vast world plays a major part as well. From what we've seen from the last two trailers, exploration has been overhauled in a major way. If we compare the beginning of Rebirth to the original game, this is the point in which the world of Gaia opens up to the player. No longer is the player simply limited to just a few rooms in a corporate city, but a living, breathing world full of hidden secrets, minigames, and stories to tell. As is to be expected, Rebirth will emphasize majorly on an exploration-focused game design. Since Cloud and the party are trying to track down Sephiroth, the exploration of the game will reflect that journey. When Hamaguchi was asked if they felt any pressure to match fan expectations, he didn't directly answer. However, he did explain the process the team used to recreate Gaia. They looked into the feeling that each region invoked, and worked to reflect that in the graphics to make each area feel diverse. Not only that, but each region has their own chocobo type that is native to the area. These chocobos will have varying abilities that players will need to utilize in order to fully explore the world. The examples that Hamaguchi used were black chocobos that can climb steep mountains, or teal chocobos that can fly. Based on this information, it seems like we'll be able to catch chocobo just like we were able to in the original game. Chocobo breeding to get the ever-coveted gold chocobo will likely be in the game as well. If it'll be as tedious as it was in the original remains to be seen. Kitase chimed in when asked about the balance between new and old interpretations of locations and moments in Remake, and if there was a similar balance in Rebirth. Kitase said that as with the previous game, the team strived to find the right balance between the two, and they are confident that both fans and newcomers alike will find them enjoyable. The way that they were able to expand on old ideas and places in Remake was something that I fell in love with, and I'm very excited to see what they'll reimagine here. Hamaguchi was asked about the function of the world map in Rebirth, with which he said that the world map is vast and expansive, so not all locations will be used in the main scenario alone. In fact, the amount of side content is so large that it's almost double the amount of content within the main scenario. The scale of the world is demonstrated via a landmark in the HUD, which shows a location that's to be over 4,000 meters away. For the completionists out there, you don't have to worry about missing content. Even if you complete the main scenario, you can still revisit every single region. For those wondering about save data transfer, there is no such thing for Rebirth. That being said, there will be additional bonuses for those who do have save data for Remake and Intermission. For Remake save data, this will be the Leviathan summoning materia and the Ramuh summoning materia for Intermission. While some may be disappointed by the lack of save data transfer, it makes sense. While Remake is the second installment of a trilogy, it also stands alone as its own game. There are entirely new systems, weapons, and materia. Not only that, but the rebalancing that would be needed would take so much time away from other areas that the devs could be focusing on. Kawamori briefly chimed in to discuss the music for Rebirth, and as to be expected, it will be a healthy mix of new music and rearrangements of classic tracks. This time around, the variety of musical genres has expanded, which will broaden the scope and feel of the game in a very big way. Nomura was asked what the concept behind the new trailer was. While there are fans who are following the mysteries that were established in Remake, the purpose of this trailer was to give an overview of what both new and old players will experience. For the next trailer, fans can expect that air of mystery to return. There is a segment of the trailer that shows Cloud and Sephiroth fighting together during the flashback, and yep, just like in the original, the player can control Sephiroth. Now, there is a switch up that Nomura is letting everyone in on. Wutai will not be a place that the party visits at this point in the trilogy, and they will instead visit there in Part 3. The reason for this is likely to have more content for that portion of the story. In the original game, Disc 3 mainly pertained to the final battle and the Northern Crater section of the map. By having Wutai as a region as well, this will allow for a bigger game. Rebirth will end its story at the Forgotten Capital where, as Nomura puts it, the greatest fate of Final Fantasy VII awaits you. Of course, Nomura is speaking of Aerith's death, but I don't believe this confirms how the scenario will play out. You see, ever since the events of Remake unfolded, so many in the community have debated as to whether or not Aerith will survive that encounter or not. Since the party defeated fate, the quote, ultimate fate, unquote, has yet to be seen. Whatever will unfold, this unknown journey will conclude Part 2 of this trilogy. So much information was given in this one article after 3 years of waiting. Over the coming months, we can expect these features to be elaborated on even further and more mysteries to be unearthed. With the release date locked in, we no longer have to hold our breath. Personally, I'm going to be replaying the original Final Fantasy VII, along with replaying Remake and Intermission in preparation. If you have certain preparations made, let me know what you've got planned. If you stuck around, thank you for watching. More videos are on their way, and I can't wait to share them with you. Take care.